I have been living in the UK for about 18 months now, and it has been an absolute whirlwind. But if there is one thing I have learned, it is that Americans and British people are separated by a common language and a completely different set of rules for daily life. When I first got on that plane from Chicago to London, I thought, how different can it really be? They speak English, watch our movies, and drink a lot of tea. How hard could it be to adapt? I was literally shocked. The truth is, there are some things about British culture, daily habits, and home design that make absolutely zero sense to an American brain. We are talking about cultural quirks so deeply embedded in the British psyche that when you try to question them, people look at you like you are crazy. So grab a cup of tea because today we are breaking down 9 things that Americans truly do not understand about Britain. And trust me, by the time we get to the final 2 on this list, your American plumbing and hygiene sensibilities are going to be completely shattered. Let us start with something that literally threw me into a social crisis during my first week in London. The word is all right. In the United States, if someone asks, "How are you?" or "Are you all right?" they are looking for an actual answer. You might say, "I am doing great," or "Actually, my week has been a little rough," and then you have a polite conversation. The first time I walked into my new office, my colleague passed me in the hallway, looked at me, and just said, "All right." I stood there, froze, and started explaining my transition from America, how the jet lag was hitting me, and how I was trying to find a good grocery store. He looked at me with sheer panic in his eyes, gave a polite nod, and quickly walked away. I was so confused. Did I say something wrong? Here is the truth. All right is not a question. It is a verbal punctuation mark. It is the British equivalent of saying "hey" or "what is up." You are not supposed to actually answer it with your life story. The correct response is actually just to say "all right" back, or maybe give a quick "yeah, you," and keep walking. It is a social dance that relies entirely on no one actually caring about the details of your well-being in that exact split second. It is just a quick, efficient way of acknowledging your existence without getting bogged down in actual emotional labor. Once you master the art of the verbal nod and the quick, low-pitched "all right," you are officially initiated into British society. And next up is the pub. Now, as Americans, we have bars, taverns, and sports lounges. If you go to a bar in America, you are usually there to get a drink, watch a game on a massive flat screen, or meet up with friends on a Friday night. But in the UK, the concept of the local pub is something entirely different. It is not just a place to consume alcohol, it is literally an extension of the community's living room. People go to the pub for Sunday roasts with their families, bring their dogs, do their remote work there, and even bring their babies in strollers. The first time I saw a newborn baby asleep next to a pint of Guinness at 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, I was stunned. In the US, that would look like a call to social services. But here, it is just a standard weekend. There is a deep connection between Brits and their local pubs that goes back hundreds of years. Historically, the public house was the only heated building in a village where working class people could gather, share news, and escape cramped living quarters. That social blueprint has survived. You do not go to the pub to show off or get bottle service. You go there in your sweatpants to sit by a fireplace, play a board game, and complain about the transit system with people you have known for 5 minutes. It is a sanctuary of comfort, and Americans who think it is just a regular bar are missing the entire soul of British community life. Also, this is exactly the kind of thing I go much deeper on with the people who support this channel directly. If you're sitting there thinking, okay, I need the fuller version of these expat culture shocks, join the membership below. That is where I share my deeper thoughts, the more personal side of living in London, and the extra bits I cannot always fit into these main videos. We talk about everything from the weird cultural adjustments to the absolute chaos of renting a flat in London. This brings us to point number 3, which is the absolute paradox of travel distance. Coming from the US, our sense of scale is completely warped. I am from the Midwest, where a 3-hour drive is what we consider a casual road trip to go to a bigger Target or visit family for a Sunday lunch. We think nothing of driving 60 miles just to go to a specific restaurant. But when you move to the UK, the geography scale shrinks, yet the psychological scale expands massively. To a British person, a 2-hour drive is an absolute epic journey that requires extensive planning, a car inspection, and packed lunches. If you tell a Brit that you are driving from London to Manchester, which is roughly a 4-hour drive, they will look at you with deep concern. I remember telling my British flatmate that I wanted to take a weekend trip to Edinburgh, which is about a 5-hour train ride. She looked at me like I was planning an expedition to Mount Everest. Historically, Britain is an island where towns and cities were established close together during medieval times, designed for horse-drawn travel. Because of this, the entire infrastructure makes small distances feel incredibly long. The roads are narrow, winding, and filled with roundabouts, meaning a 50-mile drive can easily take 2 hours of high-concentration maneuvering. So, while Americans think 100 years is a long time, Brits think 100 miles is a long distance. It is a completely different way of looking at the map. Now, we have to talk about healthcare, but not in the way you might think. We all know about the National Health Service, or the NHS, which is the crown jewel of British public services. Americans have a lot of opinions on public healthcare, and we often assume it is either completely free, with zero friction, or a bureaucratic nightmare with endless waiting lines. The reality is somewhere in the middle, but the thing that absolutely blew my mind as an American was the prescription fee system. In the US, when you go to the pharmacy, the cost of your medicine depends entirely on your insurance plan, the manufacturer, and whether you are buying generic. You could pay $5 or you could pay $500 for the exact same pill, depending on your coverage. In England, however, they have a flat fee system. No matter what medicine you are prescribed, whether it is a basic antibiotic or an incredibly expensive specialty drug, you pay a single flat fee of £9.90 per item. If your doctor prescribes you a drug that costs the state thousands of pounds to source, you still only pay £9.90 at the pharmacy counter. Even crazier, if you have to take multiple prescriptions regularly, you can buy what is called a prescription prepayment certificate, which is basically an all-you-can-eat subscription for your medicine. You pay about £112 for a year, and all your prescriptions are covered. To an American who has spent their entire life navigating co-pays, deductibles, and insurance denials, this feels like absolute science fiction. Quick thing before we get to the worst two on this list, which are literally going to make you question the laws of physics and hygiene. The data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. That means you are showing up for the expat chaos, but the algorithm has no reason to show you my next video. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next breakdown of British life. We have got some incredible expat survival guides and cultural breakdowns coming up, and I do not want you to miss out. Now we are entering the territory of the final two things on this list, which are, in my humble opinion, the absolute worst design flaws in the history of domestic infrastructure. Let us talk about point number 5, the separate hot and cold water taps in the bathroom sink. If you walk into almost any traditional British home, older flat, or historic pub, you will find yourself staring at two completely separate metal taps. One is on the far left and one is on the far right. One tap delivers water that is literally sourced from the frozen depths of the Arctic Circle. The other tap delivers a stream of scalding, pressurized lava straight from the Earth's mantle. There is no middle ground, and there is no mixer faucet where you can gently adjust the temperature to a comfortable warmth. You are forced to make a daily, high-stakes choice. Do you want to freeze your fingers off, or do you want to suffer third-degree burns? When I first encountered this, I was standing in a historic bathroom, waving my hands frantically back and forth between the two streams, trying to get a lukewarm average. It was ridiculous. Why does this still exist in a modern country? It goes back to the post-World War II era when indoor plumbing was being rapidly installed. Cold water was piped in directly from the mains and was fresh and safe to drink. Hot water, however, was heated and stored in a massive open-topped galvanized metal tank located up in the attic. Because this hot water sat stagnant, it was highly vulnerable to contamination from dust, rust, or pests. Therefore, by law, this stored hot water was deemed unsafe for human consumption. To prevent any possible cross-contamination of the clean drinking water in the mains, building regulations strictly mandated that the hot and cold water supplies had to remain completely separate all the way to the tap. Even though modern British homes now use combi boilers that heat water instantly, the legacy infrastructure and codes persisted for decades. Brits are so used to this setup that many actually view it as a charming piece of national heritage. But to an American, it is an absolute nightmare. This leads us directly to the absolute peak of British home design confusion. Point number 6, the washing machine in the kitchen. In the United States, laundry is treated as a dirty, private chore. We have dedicated laundry rooms, or we have our washers and dryers tucked away in the basement, a hallway closet, or a garage. The idea of mixing dirty socks with the place where you prepare dinner is considered a massive hygiene violation. But when you move to the UK, you will walk into a flat, look under the kitchen counter right next to the stove, and there, sitting proudly in plain sight, is the washing machine. I remember the absolute shock I felt when I toured my first apartment in London. I asked the letting agent, "Where is the laundry room?" He pointed to the kitchen counter and said, "It is right there." I was literally horrified. I thought, are you telling me I have to wash my underwear in the same room where I chop my vegetables? But again, this is a quirk born out of sheer geographical and historical necessity. British homes are, on average, much smaller than American houses, making space a precious commodity. There is simply no room for a dedicated laundry utility room in a standard city flat. Secondly, it comes down to safety regulations. In the UK, electrical safety laws are incredibly strict. You are not legally allowed to have high voltage electrical outlets in bathrooms unless the outlet is located at least 3 meters away from the bath or shower, which most British bathrooms do not have. Since the bathroom is ruled out and there is no basement or laundry room, the kitchen is the only room that has both the heavy-duty electrical wiring required for a washing machine and direct access to water supply and wastewater pipes. It is a highly efficient, practical solution to a complex engineering problem. Over time, you actually get used to it. There is a weird convenience to being able to stir your pasta sauce with one hand while tossing a load of towels into the wash with the other. But to any visiting American, walking into a kitchen and hearing a spin cycle vibrating at 1,000 revolutions per minute while they are trying to eat breakfast is an absolute cultural shock. Point number 7 is the complicated code of British politeness and indirect communication. In America, we are known for being very direct, sometimes to a fault. If we do not like something or if we disagree with a plan at work, we will usually just say, "Hey, I do not think this is going to work. Let us try something else." We value transparency and efficiency, but in Britain, direct conflict is avoided at all costs. Instead, they have developed a highly sophisticated, passive-aggressive dialect of polite code words. When a British colleague looks at your project proposal and says, "That is a very brave idea," they do not mean you are courageous. They mean you are absolutely insane and your idea is going to fail spectacularly. If they say, "With all due respect," they are actually preparing to tell you that you have no idea what you are talking about. And my absolute favorite is, "I hear what you are saying," which is the polite way of saying, "I have completely dismissed your opinion and I am waiting for you to stop talking." During my first few months in my office, I took everything literally. When my manager said, "Perhaps you could look into this other option," I thought, "Oh, that is just a casual suggestion," so I ignored it and kept doing my own thing. I later realized that perhaps you could look into this actually meant, "Do this immediately," or "You are going to get fired." It is a system of social lubrication designed to prevent anyone from feeling uncomfortable, but for an outsider, it requires a complete mental translation guide. You have to listen not to the words they are saying, but to the silence between the words. It is an art form, and once you learn to decode it, you realize just how brutal British politeness can actually be. If you are enjoying this deep dive into my chaotic life as an expat and want to see more of this content, please take a second to hype up this video, hit that like button, leave a comment with the weirdest cultural shock you have ever experienced, and share it with a friend. Your support and love really keep this channel going, and it honestly means the world to me when I see you guys engaging with these stories. Let us move on to point number 8, which is the unapologetic approach to work-life balance and annual leave. In the United States, we are practically conditioned to believe that our self-worth is directly tied to our productivity. We have this toxic hustle culture where taking vacation days is almost seen as a sign of weakness or a lack of dedication to the company. Even when we do take time off, we are constantly checking our emails, answering phone calls, and apologizing for being away from our desks. But when I started working in the UK, I realized that the attitude toward time off is completely different. By law, full-time workers in the UK are entitled to 28 days of paid annual leave per year. That is nearly 6 weeks of vacation, completely separate from sick leave or parental leave. And let me tell you, Brits take every single one of those days without a single shred of guilt. When a British person goes on holiday, they set their out-of-office autoresponder to something like, "I am out of the office," with no access to email, and they literally disappear off the face of the earth. If you try to contact them for an emergency, their colleagues will look at you like you are a monster for interrupting their personal time. There is a healthy boundary here, where work is just a thing you do to fund your life, not your entire identity. At first, as an American, I felt this overwhelming anxiety whenever I took a day off. I felt like I had to justify it. But here, your manager will actually pull you aside at the end of the year and say, hey, you still have 5 days of leave left. You need to book them off immediately. It is a beautiful, humane way of living that Americans desperately need to understand. This brings us to point number 9, which is the hidden British social hierarchy determined entirely by where you buy your groceries. In America, we have grocery stores, of course, Whole Foods for the organic crowd, Trader Joe's for quirky snacks, and Walmart or Kroger for weekly staples. But we do not really assign a deep social class to where you buy your milk and eggs. In the UK, however, your choice of supermarket is basically a public declaration of your social standing, political views, and household income. At the absolute top of the food chain, you have Waitrose and Marks & Spencer, often called M&S. If you shop at Waitrose, you are telling the world that you have made it in life, you probably live in a leafy suburb, and you do not mind paying £4 for a single organic avocado. Then you have the middle tier, which consists of Sainsbury's and Tesco. This is the solid, respectable middle-class territory where most of the country shops. But even within Tesco, you have levels. If you shop at a Tesco Express, you are probably a busy urban professional who does not mind paying a convenience premium. Then at the bottom of the price scale, you have Aldi and Lidl. For a long time, these German discounters were looked down upon, but with the recent cost of living crisis, they have become incredibly popular. Yet there is still this hilarious, subtle shame some people feel when they are spotted carrying a Lidl bag in a posh neighborhood. People will actually reuse a Waitrose bag to carry their Lidl groceries just to maintain appearances. It is a fascinating, highly complex social matrix that reflects the deep-seated British obsession with class. You can tell everything you need to know about a person's background just by looking at the label on their ready meal lasagna. So, those are the 9 things that Americans truly struggle to comprehend about life in Britain. It is a country of incredible charm, deep history, and some of the most baffling domestic quirks you will ever encounter. But despite the separate taps, the kitchen laundry, and the coded workplace passive aggression, I have genuinely fallen in love with this place. It teaches you to slow down, to appreciate the community of a local pub, and to actually take your vacation days without feeling like a criminal. If you enjoyed this video and want to support my journey as an American expat trying to survive the British winter, make sure to show some love in the comments below. Let me know which of these 9 quirks shocked you the most, or if there is something else about British life that still makes absolutely no sense to you. Thank you so much for watching. Keep your alright short, your tea hot, and your washing machine spinning, and I will see you in the next video.